fights, and so my understanding is you went personally to an MMA event over this last weekend. So I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I've been going to 559 fights on a regular basis. So
Yeah. So are they based up in the Central Valley
they
or?
are. 559 is the phone area code.
Ah, okay. Well, that would make perfect sense. And by the way, when was the last time you went to? When was the last time they had an event at Tachi Palace that you attended?
My timing has been such that they've never had a MMA event at Tachi Palace
Oh,
since any time that I've been up here. And my understanding is they probably are not.
oh, okay. All right. Well, so basically, so Matthew, we'll start off with that today. We've also got a few other things to cover, um, and just some scheduling for 3C2A wrestling is finally in motion. There's been a couple of tournaments that I've seen happen, and then also the Akibasho, the September tournament of Ozumo has finished, and it ended up being quite a surprise on the winner and such. So we'll get into a little bit of details, and then we didn't record last week, so we let two chapters of One Piece pile up, and there was quite a lot going on there. So we're gonna make sure to cover that because there was some big revelations on some of those, like just mind-blowing. I think Oda really knows how to make things interesting. So Matthew, let's get it right into it. 559 fights that happened this last Saturday, so take us right through it.
Okay, so as is typical of at least 559 fights, I would imagine, from what I've seen, a bunch of amateur fights typically pile on the fighters as well, but we had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and those were the fights that actually happened. A lot of times fights are scratched. They were
Oh, really?
scheduled to be like 15 or 16 fights, and
Mm-hmm.
there were still 14 that happened. So a lot of these fighters are either have one or two fights on their record. They're trying to figure out if they really want to do this. But the main event for the 559 fights flyweight title, Lazarus Maldonado, known as Laz, defeated George Burgos.
Mm-hmm.
He had TKO at 229 in the first round. This is a rematch. Laz, because the last fight was a no contest because Laz misjudged it and he hit Burgos when he was still a downed opponent. It was a head kick. So it was accidental. The judge called it a no contest.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm gonna write a article about this, but I think he's ready for the next level. Like when I interviewed him for MMA Freak, and he said that he wasn't sure he wanted to do this, but I think he has what it takes. I really, it's like from what I'm seeing, it's he's a young kid. He's like 20 or in his early 20s. So and he's. I seriously think he should consider the next level because he's.
So how many fights has he had so far?
He's had 6 amateur fights. This was his 7th. So he's, I believe, 6-1, and it's 1 loss he avenged. So he's going upward. I think he should consider giving the pros a shot.
Okay. So that was interesting then. So that means that he's the current title holder of the in that weight class.
He's the 559 fights and Camo flyweight title. Camo is the California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization.
Interesting. So he holds that in 2 amateur. So he holds the title in 2 amateur.
Well,
organizations.
Camo is the governing body. It would be the equivalent if the California State Athletic Commission had an MMA title.
Okay. Interesting.
Like, the best equivalent I could say is like the New York State Athletic Commission used to have a boxing championship.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that eventually was morphed into one of the boxing organizations.
Mm-hmm.
The lineage of that title. But yeah, so yeah, this would be equivalent if the athletic commission had a championship.
Oh, good, good. So what was the next fight that really caught your attention?
So this was women's welterweight.
Isn't that kind of on the bigger side?
Women's 170 pounds, and these are not big women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're my height, and they're not like rotund, I'll just say. They're not overweight. So I'm kind of like surprised, like, gee whiz, it's like, are these women packing in like muscle that I'm not seeing under there?
Maybe.
So that's the only thing I can think of. So Julia Alonso, who I believe was 1-1, and then Debbie Svong, who was 1-0. I think this was for the Camo title.
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, she knocked her out, and
well, who knocked who out?
Julia Alonso knocked out Debbie Svong.
Okay. And so how successful has Alonso been?
Well, this makes her 2-1.
2-1. Okay. And that was for the title fight?
Yeah, I would imagine that being women's welterweights, there aren't a whole lot of opportunities. I saw one of her fights, but yeah, I would imagine that there aren't a whole lot of opportunities for women that big. I'm really surprised that Camo sanctioned a title
for that weight class.
For that weight class.
Yeah. Yeah. That I
mean, maybe these girls will be recruited to the to PFL next year.
Maybe. That's interesting. Okay. And then, so what was the third? So the third match you had a highlight.
The third match was lightweight champion David Mariscal. I think this was vacant. So David Mariscal, either that or he was the defending champion. I'd like to say this was for the vacant title. But he beat Enrique Carino at 1 second. He took him down, got the mount, and
1 second of what? The first period, second period?
No, 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Oh,
Took him down, mounted him, four down to punches.
Wasn't that much of a fight then? Well,
yeah, no, he's I've watched him in several. Some of these guys are repeat guys. The headliners, they're repeat guys. So they just went in and. I should note that there were grappling events interspersed because a lot of times 559 will throw in some I guess you would call it no-gi jiu-jitsu or grappling.
Yes.
So but it was very interesting because normally they do adults, but these were kids.
Oh, really?
And most of them were in gis.
So one thing I've been told, because if you remember Alan, my teammate, my friend, because we coached together, and he had gotten way over, I don't know, something like 220 pounds, I think, or something like that.
What did he wrestle at?
Well, when he wrestled at Fullerton, I think he was probably wrestling like 50s or 60s, I think, at that time. But, so he let himself kind of get a little bit, round and stuff like that. And then
we've all gotten out of shape.
Yeah, very true.
The only guy who hasn't gotten out of shape is Vince Silva.
Yeah, he manages to stay in shape. Boy, man.
I do not know.
Yeah, even he's had to get some, corrective surgeries and stuff like that too. So
Silva?
Yeah, he had to, because he's kind of a tall guy, so sometimes, like his knees or his hips, are kind of, you know, might trouble him. So, but
Well,
man,
and
he's walking around and
what
everything.
was his injury too? What was his injury?
When I don't remember at the NCAA's, I'd have to ask. I think it had something to do with his shoulder or his collarbone. I think that's what I had heard, but I don't know that for certain. I think it had something to do with that. Um, anyway, so but yeah, he had some treatment a little while ago, but man, he's all walking around and stuff again. So, just the man is amazing, and how he's able to do stuff like that. I'm just always amazed at that. But where were we going with this? About was it
Alan.
about? Oh yeah, Alan. So he was doing some BJJ, recently, and he's down to like I think 180 or 190, I think. So he lost a lot of weight. So that's why like I had talked to you, on when I was talking to you on when I was texting you, and I was like, maybe I should go do one of these things, but just gotta find the right area, find the right gym, and then.
Well, it's a lot. The way that BJJ is versus the way wrestling is. Wrestling is you have to be a little bit willing to be a little bit more aggressive.
Right.
BJJ, you can afford to be defensive and you could still win a match because BJJ,
Right.
to my knowledge, BJJ matches are not timed.
Right.
So they literally go until someone wins.
Oh. Yeah, you can probably expend a lot of.
I might be wrong, but that's my understanding of the sport.
Well, there
Which was
may or may
why
not be a time limit.
yeah, which is why the early UFCs were structured the way they were because they were tailored specifically for the Gracies because
Right.
they were trying to prove that BJJ was a
Was superior.
well, they did prove it for a relatively long time until you had the cross train fighters
Right.
who realized, oh, if I cross train in multiple disciplines, I can beat these guys.
Yep, that's
Which
true.
eventually happened, unfortunately. It's just,
Yeah. So anyway, so were there any other like major, like I don't know, finishes or something that stood out to you for any of the other fights
there
on
were
this?
several finishes.
Before we move on?
Well, I'm gonna mention the uh two other major wins. Javier Torres,
Mm-hmm.
also at flyweight. He made his way through a decision. He's a regular at 559. And then Johnny Maldonado, bantamweight, also regular. He made his way through a decision.
So.
Um, Impressive armbar by Roman Gillen in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because his opponent Daniel Bradley was like starting to get out, but he never fully let go of it, and you didn't even see the tap from the angle I was in.
Mm.
Jose Estrada, I think that was the one where they had to call the ref or the paramedics in.
Mm.
So
Okay.
that was Enriching Hooligan taking out Christian De La Cruz. So yeah, we had some
Interesting
yeah,
fights.
there were some like just drag out decisions, and then there were
Uh-huh.
some um better fights there. So
All right.
so
But you enjoyed yourself, right?
yeah, I enjoyed myself. Also, what was unique is that during the summer 559 fights hosts
Uh-huh.
events in at the Rawhide Stadium, which is home to the Visalia Rawhide, which is actually an minor league baseball team.
Mm.
So what they did was they had the cage down at home plate, the VIP area, which is where I was basically along the baselines, and then everyone else was around the in the stands around the home plate area.
Okay. Well, good.
Of note, an interesting thing that happened at the fight, a drone started flying overhead, and we think it was probably someone nearby trying to get a look at it, which the security made it as difficult as possible trying to throw things at it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
They're like, yeah, you're not gonna watch any fight free. You're not gonna watch any free fights here.
yeah.
So they were just tossing mainly shoes,
Mm, okay.
but they never got to it. It was a profession. It was like a pretty good quality drone too. The thing went up like 50, 60 feet above the air. Could barely see the thing. But yeah, that was so yeah, that was 559 fights.
All right. Well, good to know that you got to see some good fights and stuff. And yes, I'm gonna be definitely interested to see how that interview turns out for sure. Um,
It's on the
oh,
MMA
it's on.
YouTube.
Okay, all right. But yeah, maybe you can try to set up with some more interviews with some of these guys, and we can, maybe get some clippings up on our.
I tried to work out another interview with my contact, but it the timing didn't quite work out. So
All right. Well, good, good. So we'll conclude that then for 559 fights, and so that was some pretty good insight, Matthew. So let's move on to our next topic for tonight, and that was the Akibasho of Sumo and the September tournament. And so I'm sure, Matthew, you heard about some of the stuff going on, and Dad made sure he was up to date on it. So one of the
this
things we
was one of those bashos where there were a lot of losing records in Makuuchi.
yeah, a lot of people that were just underperforming. And obviously, one of the highlights that ended up happening was Yokozuna Terunofuji having to pull out, because of his injury. And I looked at the report of the injury when they released, why he was withdrawing and then the treatment and stuff. And he actually has a dislocated knee, and it was going to require surgery and stuff. So, and this is something we've known for a while. I mean, everybody in the sumo world knows that Terunofuji is
Has a shelf life.
yeah, he's fighting on borrowed time, and he's and I've made mention of this before, that he did his time. He made this spectacular comeback, to rise from behind the curtain down to as low as he could have been in his sumo career, to come back and make Yokozuna. And then he's put Yusho championships together after he made the rank of Yokozuna. So he's just kind of he was trying to do his duty as the sole Yokozuna in sumo, but sometimes your body can only take you so far.
Yeah, I think he may need to just consider calling it a career.
Possibly, yes. I
It's
think
like they awarded him as Yokozuna. He won some basho as Yokozuna, but as you said, he's done on borrowed time. He can only do so much for the sumo, the
well, I
sumo
think
association, the community, the stuff like that. He can only do so much because he's got a shelf life. He had these injuries. He's probably gonna have no cartilage, in his 50s, 60s, something like that. He's
so.
got.
So
I
one thing
don't know if he has knee replacement surgery, but if he hasn't, he will need it.
yeah.
He
One thing
he
I have to One thing I do have to point out, though, what he may be trying to do, because he has applied for and he has gotten Japanese citizenship, which means he intends on staying in the Kyokai, as a oyakata. But in order to do that, he's going to have to secure a kabu or stock an elder stock in order to be able to do that. And right now, stock is a little bit, scarce as far as actually securing a stock. So maybe he might be trying to, bide his time on that. Maybe trying to negotiate, with the Kyokai. I mean, there's always that possibility. I mean, you've got a lot of wrestlers that are trying to, they end up wrestling probably longer than they should be. Like some of these guys, they fall down to, Makushita and stuff, longer than they normally would have. And so, that's a possibility that may be the thing that he's waiting on. So, but I mean, only time will tell, and only Terunofuji will know. And I guess it just depends on how things are going with available, Kabu and the Kyokai. I think that's what it comes down to.
Well, like Hakuho didn't need to go as long as he did because he already had the everything, right?
He went probably maybe a year or two longer than he should have, but I mean,
the timing coincided with his Oyakata.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's maybe what did happen because, he was only retired for a year, and then he and his Oyakata switched places because the original Miyagi no Oyakata turned 65 a few months back, and that's where they switched, the Kabu. So now Hakuho is the Miyagi no Oyakata. And maybe for some wrestlers, there's other ways that they can help with sumo. So like one of the things, for instance, before we go back into the main topic of the akibasho, you've got one of Hakuho's fellow former stablemates. Now he's his deshi, but there's a wrestler called Ishiura, and Ishiura, actually his dad is like he's the, I don't know if he's the principal or the vice principal, and he's the sumo coach at this powerhouse sumo high school. So there's people theorizing about this on Sumo Forum, which is always why that's a little fun to. But Ishiura is kind of in his the twilight of his career now because he's gotten injured and he's sat out the last two basho, and now he's dropped down to Makushita from Makuuchi. So the theory is that maybe Ishiura might be getting, he doesn't have enough he doesn't have enough qualifications for staying in the Kyokai. Maybe he might get a job at the power high school, which I think he did graduate from himself, and he might be getting into that head coach position, because then what's going to happen is now you have a feeder program into the new Miyagi no Beya. And that could be very, that could be quite something for Hakuho going into the next, couple of decades.
Yeah, because they start recruiting those guys out of high school, right?
Oh, they start recruiting them out of middle school. Some of them they start recruiting out of elementary school.
Yeah, but you can't get them into a Beya until...
No, they have to graduate middle school.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you develop a pipeline and stuff like that, so if a lot more wrestlers are starting to graduate high school now. But yeah, if you've got a pipeline like that, man, you're pretty set, and you're pretty. You could be having a dominant, a dominant Heya in the future. Hakuho, he's, it's taking a little time, but a lot of his recruits, they're starting to come up, and they're starting to come up really strong, is the thing. So
now I forgot. In order to avoid the one foreigner rule, how much school does someone have to do?
Yeah. Okay. So apparently, this is how it's working. The one foreigner is this person is coming directly from overseas.
So like what Konishiki, Akebono, Mutashimaru did.
Yeah.
because they came direct.
So
Because they were like going in, they were like going to go into college, and then they had other athletic experience, and the members of the Sumo Kokai were like, oh, these guys look promising, and of course they all were.
So here's how they're skirting that rule. You've got a lot of these guys who are coming in as exchange students. So that means that they're going through the sumo system in Japan. They're either going in, so they're going in through the high school, or they might be going in through the college also. And that way they're and then some of them, they've stayed in Japan long enough, like they might have come over when they were in elementary school, and they stayed long enough where they can get a green card or a permanent residence card in Japan.
The Japanese equivalent of a green card.
Right. So if they've got that, then that means that they are actually living in Japan. So then, the Heya or whoever's trying to recruit the foreigner doesn't have to worry about the whole visa thing. So that's how they're that's the loophole, and a lot of them.
Really, that's a ridiculous rule.
The one foreigner per Heya rule.
Well, yeah,
because
the Japan Baseball League also has that rule. Like they have,
I think it's three per team. Yeah, but so basically, so as long as your place of origin doesn't necessarily have to be your place of birth, it's your place of origin according to the Kyokai. That's what they consider to be whether you're considered as a foreigner or not. So you got a lot. There's like a lot of them.
Like you going. So let's just say hypothetically, if you had gone through a high school, you would have
gone on to college. Let's say, because I would not. Yeah, I didn't have, because we had that residence, but it wasn't permanent. So I think I would have had to secure a visa if I wanted to try to go into sumo in some way.
Okay.
Let's say, yeah. But yeah, that's how they're secured. So these people are being considered as Japanese. Yeah, it's really interesting. So the second point I wanted to bring up, we had quite a we went off topic there as far as the basho is concerned, but the underwhelming performance of the ozeki. Now you had Taka Keisho, who kind of seemed rocky at the start, but he had a 10-5 finish, which is that's deemed respectable for a ozeki. But then you had Shodai, who just came off of a kadoban, meaning he was in danger of losing his rank. In July, he managed to achieve the majority of wins, or kachikoshi, which got him off. It got him off of kadoban, and then you had Mitakeumi, who was kadoban in the previous basho, but he got saved because he was forced to withdraw from the tournament due to a COVID infection. So the Kyokai.
Hey, I saw that wasn't much of an issue this basho.
Yeah, yeah. Somehow it turned out not to be much of an issue this basho. So Mitakeumi, because considering he was on his way to dropping last basho, but he got saved. So Kyokai gave him another chance. Both ozeki turned out a 4-11 record, just abysmal. I mean, it's like, well, why even going the whole way through is my thought. But so now we're in another conundrum. The Kyokai is kind of in a bind here because you got one ozeki that's falling from the rank. He's going to be Sekiwake next basho. Now, if he gets 10 wins,
your Sole Yokozuna is out with an injury.
More than likely, he will probably sit the basho out. You got Taka Keisho, who's
if he's got
doing okay.
If he's got a dislocated knee, he's probably out until like not just next year, well into next year. He's probably gonna miss the. Is there a January basho?
Yes, there's a January
He's
basho.
probably gonna miss that.
So
knee dislocations and surgery, he's probably gonna miss that.
So Takakesho is okay. He's not dominant. If he was injury free, he could probably be a Yokozuna. But so unless he really turns up the heat, he's not going anywhere. Into next year.
Like we're in like a very mediocre time right now.
Oh well, what was it about?
Hakuho, because Hakuho just retired.
Mm-hmm.
And you had this come from behind admirable victory, but you have another Yokozuna who's
Teruno Fuji is he's basically the transitionary Yokozuna. That's what he is, and
he's not going to set any kind of records. He'll be lucky if he comes back from this injury.
Yeah. So, and then you got people who are just not dominant right now, and this actually happened, 30 years ago. A few years before we went to Japan, it was actually this similar transitionary period where there were no Yokozuna on the Banzuke.
And then you got a weird situation where there were too many when Konishiki won.
Right. Yeah, there's never been 5 Yokozuna.
Like they were mediocre, realistically.
Right. So and so when you're in this transitionary period, you're gonna have like a lot of people winning. But so far it seems so. Mitakeumi, he's got to win 10 to regain his rank next basho. Shodai is so inconsistent. And for I've checked his record. For the last 4 tournaments, he's had a 1-4 start. Over the literally last 4 tournaments, he's had a 1-4 start each of those tournaments. And if I go back and so let's say
isn't 1-4 supposed to be aren't the first 5 matches supposed to be the easier matches?
They're supposed to be the easier match. So in March, after a 1-4 start, he finished 9-6. In May, after his 1-4 start, he went 5-10. And then last tournament, he went 10-5. And then he actually won the first day of this tournament, and he finishes 4-11. And that included 9 straight losses. I mean, come on. So very inconsistent. So the danger is that if he goes makekoshi or loses 8 bouts, and then you've got Mitakeumi, he doesn't look very strong, and there's a possibility he may not regain his rank. So then you're left with only 1 Ozeki. What are you going to do? Well, right now, they've got Wakataka Kage, who finished 11-4. And so far, he's got 20 wins. Now, the de facto minimum for making Ozeki is 33 wins, and impressive performances. My prediction is that if the worst case scenario happens where Mitakeumi doesn't regain his rank, if Shodai ends up dropping, and if Wakataka Kage puts in 11-12 wins, I think they'll promote him, because there's apparently this rule, and I might have explained it before. There's a requirement of 2 Ozeki on the Banzuke, and this already happened once.
I never knew that, but it makes sense because they always had to. There's always been 2.
Right, because the thing was that Ozeki was always the highest rank, but when Yokozuna came around, it was this thing of licensed Ozeki to perform the dohyoiri. That's where it came from. So you can manage without Yokozuna, which it's happened already. So yeah, that's how that's going. So let's get into how the Yusho race went, and it ended up being the Iron Man of Sumo. The 37-year-old veteran Tamawashi ends up winning his 2nd Yusho of his career, and it now sets the record for oldest Yusho winner in the modern era, and all time he's second to Yokozuna Tachiyama, who won it at the age of 38. And
what era?
that would have been in the Taisho era.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking 100 years ago now. So yes. You know, so it's quite something of that. So,
Like
and
Hakuho was what, 34 when he
he
retired?
was 36 when he retired. And his last Yusho is, I think, 6th place now on the all-time list. Or it's
ranks of
right
age?
of age. So yeah. So I would put this into 2 categories. You've got the all-time list, and then you've got the modern era list, which is they consider the modern era to be during the Showa era. And
well, because the Showa era started in what, the 20s?
The Showa era, yes, it started in the 20s. And even back then, the Showa era, they did not, it wasn't until 1957, I think, 57 or 58, that they started having 6 tournaments a year. So then you've got,
how many tournaments did they have a year before then?
So normally it was only 2 tournaments. And then it started increasing, I think, as they got into the Showa era, because it got up to, I think, 3 tournaments pre-World War II, and I think after it increased to 4, and then eventually got to 5, and then 6.
So the concept, a lot of the modern concepts and tournaments are really new because of the fact that the tournaments increased within a short span of each other. So the modern the 6 tournament format is pretty new.
Yeah, it's newer compared to a lot of the other things that happened, but I think when they went to 15 days, I think 15 days is also considered the modern era, because it wasn't 15 days, before.
What did they used to do?
Well, like it used to be like 10 days during the Edo period, and I think it kind of ranged on that, and then it got like to 11 and 13, and then the reason they made it 15 was because of Futabayama, who had his win streak going, and so they decided to make it 15 days to kind of balance out, to keep track easier of that, because I think Futabayama ended up winning like 2 15-0s with that, because he got to 69 consecutive wins, which is the all-time record.
Now, just to confirm, the modern Sumo Kyokai was founded in the...
I think it was founded in the...
I'd like to say I read that it was in the 20s.
Yes.
And that's when modern record keeping started, right? Because before then, it was just
so it depends on what records you're referring to. So the Yusho, the current Yusho system, the official Yusho system started in 1909. Any Yusho before 1909 is not officially recognized, so everything else is kept in the record books of the Kyokai. So
what happened in 1909?
I'd have to go back and look at it. Why they decided in 1909 to start covering that.
Like something must have happened in 1909 that caused that system to go into place.
Yeah.
But before that, it was like regional.
That may have been the possibility. And then you also had 2 factions at play. You had the Eastern Sumo, Tokyo Sumo, and then you had Osaka Sumo. And then I think they were split, and then I think in the 30s or 40s they actually merged. So some of the records are absorbed by the current Kyokai for Osaka Sumo. It's kind of like how
I think it was in the 30s it was merged.
Yeah. kind of like how you have, you know, the NFL, MLB, NBA kind of recognizing some of the statistics from the leagues that they merged with.
I think the it would probably be the equivalent of the NFL, NHL, or no, okay, NFL, AFL merger, and then the merger that created the MLB.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because what happened was the AFL and the NFL merged under the NFL banner, and then they became
Right.
the two conferences.
Right. The two conferences.
Whereas the MLB basically remained separate, but they merged under one banner. They
and
merged
actually,
together.
and the MLB recognizes a lot of other leagues records also, like the Negro leagues and stuff like that. They actually recognize those records and those championships too. So sumo kind of does the same thing.
Isn't that because there were eventual mergers of
Yes,
those leagues
yes,
into
and so some of the yokozuna from the Osaka Sumo Chokai are recognized as part of the yokozuna line today.
right, because the wasn't it a bunch of mergers that created the two associations?
Possibly, yes.
Because that's the so okay.
But anyway, Tamawashi, you know, and actually it was a pretty dominant performance. He was pretty dominant, Tamawashi. 13-2 record, so that's nothing to laugh at. And
yeah, but he's what rank is he?
He was an M3 this Basho. But
I don't has he hit Komosubi or Sekiwake?
Oh, he's been Sekiwake. In fact, his first Yusho he won as a Sekiwake.
I don't, being 38, I doubt he's gonna get any higher.
No, he probably won't make he won't make Ozeki, but you know he's been very consistent. And aside from the COVID withdrawal that we talked about, you know, last time, he's never missed a match. And you know, thankfully, the Kyokai preserved his uh, his consecutive bout streak.
Yeah.
So, but congratulations to Tamawashi. You know, hard fought battle. Also, a little bit of trivia: his only two losses were to Wakataka Kage and Wakamoto Haru, also known as the Onami brothers. So, you know, the only pair of brothers that I can think of that would have defeated a Yusho winner last time would have been Takanohana and Wakanohana.
Yeah, I read that I read that the two criteria for any division people not facing each other bar playoff is same heya or blood relations, which I imagine would probably be, like first generation cousins at the most.
Yeah, I don't know that I've heard of any cases of cousins being in there.
It's always siblings.
Right, it's always siblings. You always see siblings. So yeah. And there's been instances where siblings may join different heias, but they never match them against each other in a regular tournament.
Well, let's see. The Hanada brothers were in the same heya,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And they actually did have one playoff against each other.
Yeah, but normally the rivalry of that era was Takanohana versus Akebono.
Yep. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see how the November Basho goes. I mean, there's going to be a lot of storylines, a lot of drama. You know, it'll be interesting. I'll have to say.
Oh, so some developments with the and again, I wish that I could say that I've put in an online presence, but I haven't so far. So developments with the Sequoia Sumo Club, or as I refer to it, the Sequoia Bea. I thought it sounded nice.
Yeah.
So I actually finally got a hold of someone, and I'm not gonna name names yet until it's official and we actually hold an event there. But I found a local, I'll just say martial arts school who's willing not just to host us, but also do cross promotion with us. And the individual expressed interest in some of that school's participants cross doing cross promotion there as well.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so and said individual said that there can be a working of a financial arrangement that would be workable.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so yeah, it's yeah, I'm looking yeah, I'm glad that, and I from the feeling I get from this person is that said person just wants to help um just martial arts develop in the Central Valley, because there's only so much martial arts, especially in the more area. Whereas most other people that I've been in contact with about possibly doing it, they seem to want to stay in their own lane, and any kind of deviation into their own lane seems to threaten them for some reason. Or another way of putting it is that they're alphas and don't like the idea of another alpha going into their territory.
Your domain. Yep.
Yeah,
All
their
right.
domain. But yeah, so
I'm glad to see
when it
that
gets a
things
little
are
bit more
working out.
official, well, I'm going to create a minimum of Facebook page. I think Facebook and Instagram can be linked,
Yeah, you
so
can
I would,
link up.
yeah, so I would create a linked profile, and then
Good.
the locations would be announced on the Sequoia Sumo Club page
All right. Good to
once I've
know.
got it up and running.
Good to know. Yeah, I can't wait to see the updates because you know it'll come a time where we will face each other.
Yes, most likely in the U.S. Sumo Open, unless I keep looking at the U.S. Sumo Federation page and can't find any references to where nationals are going to be next year.
You talk about the national championships to go to the world championships, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I know last time they were the earlier this
Utah,
year they were in
right?
Utah, but yeah, I'm trying to find out from Andrew Freund what it is, but yeah, he's a trustee on the U.S. Sumo Federation, so
Well, it's like there's only so many places it could be. I'd imagine that they rotate it between Utah, Houston, and here based off of. Well, those are the major sumo hubs here in the U.S., right?
well California and then I don't know where else. You know, Dallas is or not Dallas, Texas in general has
It's
a
big in Hawaii, but going
yeah. No
going
one.
on.
I think well, you know what? I think maybe one or two
There,
people from Hawaii.
I was looking sumo up. There's Wampakuzumo in Hawaii, so it's big enough out there to where, they have the little league of sumo.
Yeah.
So it's there's got I don't know if it from the sound of the U.S. Open there weren't anyone from Hawaii, but there's got to be people in Hawaii.
Yeah. All right. Well, good to know, Matthew.
But
So,
when was the last time you heard of an national competition in Hawaii? There just aren't there,
no.
because it's easier to it's easier to go for transportation on the mainland than it is to go
Yep.
out to. It's like, I'm sorry, Hawaii, but you're kind of screwed geographically.